Single dad helped a poor woman every morning, until her lawyers walked in with 4 bodyguards. Every morning at 5:12 a.m., Daniel Harper unlocked the front door of Pine and Oak Cafe and stepped into the smell of yesterday's grease and burnt coffee. The bell above the door chimed softly behind him, though no one was there to hear it. Daniel flicked on the lights, one row at a time. The cafe woke slowly, fluorescent bulbs humming, refrigerators rattling, the ancient espresso machine coughing awake like an old smoker. He tied his apron, washed his hands, and checked the prep list taped crookedly to the wall. Same list. Same day. Same life. By 5:45, the first regulars arrived. Construction workers with cracked hands and quiet tempers. A bus driver who drank coffee like medicine. A retired man who read the newspaper cover to cover every morning and never tipped more than 50 cents. Daniel knew their orders without asking. He moved through the routine with practiced efficiency, but his mind wasn't fully there. It was at home with his son Noah. 7 years old. Too thin for his age. Shoes worn down at the heels because Daniel kept telling himself they could last one more month. Noah had a school field trip coming up. $15. Daniel had circled the note 3 times on the kitchen table like circling it might make the money appear. It never did. By 6:10 the cafe filled with noise. Orders shouted. Plates clattered. Someone complained their eggs were too runny. Someone else said they were too dry. And then at exactly 6:17 a.m., the door opened again. Daniel didn't look up at first. He was wiping down the counter, same circular motion he always used when his thoughts got heavy. But he felt it, the shift in the room. The subtle pause. The way people stopped talking for half a second before continuing in quieter voices. She had come in. The woman wore the same thin coat she always did, the fabric faded to an indeterminate gray-brown. One sleeve was slightly longer than the other, as if it had been repaired incorrectly. Her hair was pulled back loosely, strands slipping free and hanging around her face. No makeup. No jewelry. Just tired skin and eyes that never quite looked at anyone. She walked past the counter without speaking and sat at the small table in the back corner, the one by the fogged window that looked out onto the alley. She always chose that table. Daniel set the rag down. Without saying a word, he poured a cup of coffee from the fresh pot. Not the old one sitting on the warmer. The fresh one. He took 2 slices of bread, toasted them lightly, spread butter carefully to the edges, then cut the toast diagonally into smaller pieces. He placed the cup and plate on a tray and walked it over. He didn't ask what she wanted. He didn't explain. He didn't announce himself. He simply set the tray down in front of her. She looked up. Their eyes met for less than a second. She nodded once. Daniel nodded back and walked away. From behind the register, Marcy, the morning shift waitress, watched him with thinly veiled irritation. "You know she never pays for all that," Marcy muttered. Daniel shrugged. "She pays what she can." "That's not how businesses work," Marcy said. Daniel didn't answer. He picked up the rag again and went back to wiping the counter. The woman in the corner wrapped both hands around the coffee cup as if it were something fragile. She waited a moment before touching the toast, like she didn't quite believe it was meant for her. Eventually she ate. Slowly. Carefully. Like someone who didn't want to draw attention. This had been happening every morning for almost 3 months. No one remembered exactly when she first showed up. One day she simply started sitting there. The staff called her the drifter. Some customers called her worse. "She's bad for business," Marcy liked to say. "She scares people," said Rick, the dishwasher. "She's probably on something," another waitress once whispered. Daniel never joined those conversations. He just kept bringing her coffee, kept cutting the toast, kept walking away. Daniel was 34 years old and already felt much older. Life had not broken him in dramatic ways. It had worn him down quietly, missed payments, long shifts, a marriage that dissolved not with yelling but with exhaustion. His wife, Emily, hadn't left because she didn't love him. She left because love hadn't paid the bills and she was tired of being afraid. She lived 2 states away now. Sent birthday cards. Called once every few months. Promised to visit soon. Daniel didn't resent her anymore. He just focused on Noah. Every decision he made passed through one question. Will this help my son? Extra shifts meant less time together. Fewer shifts meant more bills. So Daniel stayed tired. And every morning he brought coffee to the woman in the corner. One rainy Tuesday she came in soaked through. Water dripped from the hem of her coat onto the floor. She sat down heavily, shoulders slumped. Daniel noticed her hands shaking as she reached for the cup. He hesitated only a moment before returning with a folded napkin and placing it beneath her hands, absorbing the spill before it could spread. She looked up at him, startled. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was quiet but steady. Educated. Controlled. It didn't match her appearance. Daniel nodded. "You're welcome." That was the first time she'd spoken to him. After that, she sometimes asked small questions. "How busy is it today? Is it always this cold in the mornings? Do you get used to standing all day?" Daniel answered politely but briefly. He wasn't good at conversation. He was better at showing up. One morning she asked, "Do you have children?" Daniel paused. "One. A boy." She smiled faintly. "How old?" "7." She nodded. "That's a good age." Daniel didn't know why, but that sentence stayed with him all day. The routine shifted slightly when Noah's babysitter canceled one Thursday morning. Daniel had no choice that he brought Noah with him. Noah sat at the end of the counter with a coloring book, legs swinging, humming softly to himself. He knew how to stay quiet. Life had taught him that early. The woman in the corner noticed him immediately. She watched him for a while before standing and walking over slowly. Daniel stiffened instinctively, but she stopped a few feet away. "May I?" she asked, gesturing toward Noah's drawing. Noah looked up at Daniel, who hesitated, then nodded. She knelt beside him. "That's a dinosaur," she said. "A T-Rex." Noah beamed. "Yeah. He's a good guy." She smiled. "A real one this time." "I like that." She took a napkin and began folding it carefully, her fingers precise despite a faint tremor. Within moments she held out a small paper crane. Noah's eyes widened. "How did you do that?" She shrugged. "Practice." She taught him slowly, patiently. Daniel watched from behind the counter, something tightening and loosening in his chest at the same time. Before returning to her table, she asked Noah, "Do you like your dad?" Noah didn't hesitate. "He's the best." She nodded, eyes glistening just slightly. "I can tell." After that day, she waved at Noah whenever she came in. She stayed a little longer. And Daniel realized, without meaning to, that he looked forward to seeing her. Then one morning she didn't come. Daniel still made the coffee. Still cut the toast. Still set it on the table. It went untouched. "She's gone," Marcy said. "Told you she wouldn't last." Daniel didn't reply. The next day she didn't come either. Or the day after that. Daniel kept the ritual. On the 4th day he paid for the coffee himself. On the 5th he did it again. On the 6th he wondered if she was cold somewhere. Or sick. Or worse. That night Noah asked, "Where's the lady?" Daniel swallowed. "I don't know." Noah frowned. "I hope she's okay." Daniel did too. On the 7th day the cafe door opened at 6:17 a.m. Daniel looked up. She stood there, thinner than before. Paler. Eyes ringed with dark shadows. She sat down heavily. Daniel brought the coffee. This time she looked up at him longer than usual. "I knew you'd still make it," she said. He frowned. "How?" She smiled softly. "Some things you just know." She sipped the coffee, eyes closing briefly. For the first time, Daniel wondered how much time she had left. If this story moved you even a little, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. The next morning, Daniel arrived at Pine and Oak Cafe 10 minutes early. He didn't know why. He just didn't want to be late. The street outside was still dark, the kind of gray-blue quiet that belonged only to early mornings. Daniel unlocked the door, stepped inside, and flicked on the lights. The cafe woke up slowly, reluctantly, like it always did. Everything was the same. And yet something felt wrong. He tied his apron, washed his hands, and began the routine. Coffee grounds, filters, water. He moved without thinking, muscle memory carrying him forward. At 6:17 a.m. the door did not open. Daniel noticed immediately. He told himself it didn't mean anything. People missed days. People got sick. People moved on. Still he poured the coffee. He toasted the bread. He cut the toast diagonally into small pieces. He placed the cup and plate on the back corner table by the window. The chair remained empty. Marcy noticed. "She didn't come again?" she asked, not unkindly this time, just curious. Daniel shook his head. "Not yet." Marcy shrugged. "Could be anything." Daniel nodded, but he didn't look away from the table. The coffee slowly cooled, a thin skin forming on the surface. The toast sat untouched. When the breakfast rush picked up, someone asked for the table. Daniel cleared it quickly, dumping the coffee into the sink, scraping the toast into the trash. The sound felt louder than it should have. The second day passed the same way. No woman. No nod. No quiet thank you. Daniel still prepared the coffee. Still cut the toast. Still set it down. By the third day Rick noticed. "You're still doing that?" he asked, watching Daniel from the dish pit. Daniel didn't answer. Rick scoffed. "Man, she's gone. You don't gotta keep pretending." Daniel wiped the counter harder than necessary. "I'm not pretending," he said. Rick rolled his eyes and went back to work. By the end of the week, the back corner table felt heavier somehow, like it held something invisible that no one else could see. Daniel found himself glancing toward the door constantly. Every chime made his heart lift just a little, then drop again. At night he dreamed of her. Not dramatic dreams. Not conversations or revelations. Just her sitting there holding the coffee cup, staring out the window. In the dreams he always noticed something he hadn't before: how tired she looked. How thin. How carefully she moved, like every action cost her something. He woke up with a dull ache in his chest. Noah noticed first. "She didn't come back," Noah said one night over dinner. Daniel stirred the macaroni. "No, did she move?" "I don't know." Noah frowned, pushing peas around his plate. "She was nice." Daniel nodded. "Yeah." They ate in silence. Later, as Daniel tucked Noah into bed, Noah asked quietly, "Do people disappear when they're sad?" Daniel paused. "Sometimes," he said carefully. Noah hugged his stuffed bear closer. "I hope she isn't alone." Daniel did too. The days turned into a rhythm of absence. Daniel stopped paying for the coffee, but he still made it. Still cut the toast. Still set it down. He didn't know why he kept doing it. Maybe it was superstition. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was guilt. Marcy stopped commenting. Rick stopped joking. Even the customers seemed to sense it. No one asked for that table anymore. It stayed empty. 2 weeks passed. Then 3. The woman never returned. Daniel finally stopped making the coffee. But every morning as he wiped down the counter, his eyes drifted toward the corner. And every morning he felt the same quiet loss. One afternoon near the end of his shift, Daniel sat alone at the back table during his break. He hadn't meant to. He just found himself there. The window was streaked with grime. The alley outside smelled faintly of damp cardboard and old trash. He tried to imagine her life, where she slept, what she carried in that worn coat, what had brought her to this cafe at this time every morning. He realized something then: he had never asked her name. The thought hit him harder than he expected. He felt foolish, ashamed. He had known her habits, her routines, her quiet dignity. But not her name. The guilt crept in slowly. I could have done more. I should have asked. I should have helped her find somewhere safe. Marcy's words echoed in his mind. You can't save everyone. But Daniel hadn't been trying to save her. He had just been trying to be kind. Was that enough? One evening as Daniel and Noah walked home, they passed a woman sitting on the steps of a closed storefront. She was bundled in blankets, face hidden. Noah slowed. "Dad." Daniel stopped. The woman didn't look up. Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a few dollars. Money he should have saved. He handed it to Noah. "Give it to her," he said quietly. Noah approached carefully, placed the money near the woman's hand, and stepped back. The woman murmured something they couldn't hear. As they walked away, Noah asked, "Do you think she'll be okay?" Daniel didn't answer right away. "I hope so," he said. But the hope felt thin. Winter came early that year. The mornings were colder. The cafe doors let in sharp gusts of wind that cut through coats and jackets. Daniel found himself worrying more. About the woman. About others like her. About how easy it was to become invisible. One morning, Daniel noticed a small folded napkin tucked into the corner of the window ledge at the back table. He froze. It was shaped into a paper crane. His breath caught. He picked it up carefully. It was old, creased, slightly yellowed, the folds softened by time. His heart pounded. Had she been back? Had she left it there? He asked Marcy. She shook her head. "I haven't seen her." Rick shrugged. "Probably just trash." Daniel slipped the crane into his pocket. He didn't throw it away. The days grew heavier. Daniel smiled less. Moved slower. No one noticed. "Are you sad again?" Noah asked one night. Daniel hesitated. Then nodded. "Why?" Daniel considered lying. Considered brushing it off. Instead he said, "Because I miss someone." Noah thought about that. Even if they weren't family? Daniel smiled faintly. Yeah, even then. Noah climbed into Daniel's lap and hugged him tightly. Daniel held on longer than usual. 3 months passed. Spring crept in quietly. Daniel had begun to accept that she wasn't coming back. The ritual faded, but the memory didn't. Sometimes, when the cafe was quiet, Daniel imagined her sitting there, nodding at him. Sometimes he swore he heard her voice. Then one Tuesday morning, everything changed. It was nearly 9 a.m., well past the breakfast rush. Daniel was refilling the sugar dispensers when the cafe door opened. The bell chimed. But this time it sounded different. He looked up. 4 men in black suits stepped inside. They moved with purpose, scanning the room before spreading out slightly, positioning themselves near the walls. Behind them came 2 people in gray, 1 man, 1 woman, both carrying briefcases. The cafe fell silent. Marcy's hand froze mid-pour. Rick stopped scrubbing dishes. Daniel felt a chill crawl up his spine. The woman in gray approached the counter. "Excuse me," she said calmly. "We're looking for a Daniel Harper." Marcy's eyes widened. She pointed slowly toward Daniel. The woman turned. Their eyes met. Daniel swallowed. "Yes," he said. "That's me." She nodded. "My name is Claire Whitmore. This is my colleague Thomas Reed. We need to speak with you privately." Daniel's heart began to race. "About what?" Claire glanced briefly toward the back corner table. "About a woman who used to sit there." Daniel felt the floor shift beneath him. If you're invested in this story, subscribe, like, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the final part. Your support helps stories like this reach more people. The cafe felt smaller with the 4 bodyguards inside. They didn't touch anything. Didn't speak. They stood where they were placed, hands folded, eyes alert, like furniture that had decided to become dangerous. Daniel wiped his palms on his apron without realizing he was doing it. Claire Whitmore gestured toward the back. "May we?" Daniel nodded once and led them to the corner table. The chair was still empty. Thomas Reed opened his briefcase and set it gently on the table, careful not to disturb anything, as though the space itself deserved respect. Claire sat across from Daniel. Thomas remained standing. "We understand you saw her almost every morning," Claire said. Daniel's throat tightened. "Yes." "And you spoke with her?" "Not much," Daniel said. "Mostly just, hello." Claire nodded as if she had expected that. "You provided her with food," Thomas added. "Warmth? Time?" Daniel frowned. "I didn't keep track." "No," Claire said softly. "We know." Daniel felt a strange pressure behind his eyes. "What happened to her?" he asked. Claire folded her hands together. "Mrs. Eleanor Whitlock passed away 3 months ago." The words settled slowly. "Passed away." Daniel stared at the table. "I'm sorry," Claire continued. "I know this may be difficult." Daniel swallowed. "Where?" "She was admitted to St. Vincent's Hospital late one night. Exposure. Complications from an untreated illness." Daniel's chest ached. "She didn't tell anyone," Claire said. "That was her way." Daniel nodded. He understood that. Thomas opened the briefcase and removed a thin folder. "Mrs. Whitlock left behind very specific instructions," he said. They were detailed. Methodical. Daniel glanced up. "Instructions for what?" "For who should be contacted," Thomas replied. Claire slid the folder toward Daniel. Inside were documents. Typed letters. Dates. And one handwritten page. Daniel recognized the handwriting immediately. Small. Careful. Slightly shaky. His hands trembled as he lifted the page. "I do not wish for a funeral. I do not wish for flowers. I do not wish to be remembered by people who never saw me. There is a man at a cafe on Pine and Oak. He never asked my name. He never asked my story. He gave me warmth anyway. Please find him." Daniel pressed his lips together. Claire waited. Thomas remained silent. After a long moment, Daniel asked quietly, "Why me?" Claire answered without hesitation. "Because you were consistent." They explained it slowly. Eleanor Whitlock had once been a prominent name in philanthropic circles. Old money. Quiet wealth. Endowments that funded libraries, clinics, scholarship programs. Years ago she had withdrawn. Sold her properties. Dissolved her foundations. Disappeared from public life. Most assumed she had moved abroad. In truth, she had chosen to live among those she once funded. She wanted to know what kindness looked like without recognition. She wanted to know if it still existed when there was nothing to gain, so she tested people? Daniel asked, discomfort creeping into his voice. Claire shook her head. No. She observed. There was no test. She didn't record names, Thomas added. She didn't ask questions. She simply watched. Daniel exhaled. And you? Claire continued. You never noticed her watching. Daniel thought of the nods. The quiet smiles. No, he said. That, Claire said gently, was the point. Thomas slid another document forward. This is her will. Daniel didn't touch it. I don't want, he started. Claire raised a hand. Please read. Daniel hesitated, then opened the folder. The numbers didn't make sense at first. They were too large. His breath hitched. This isn't, his voice cracked. There's been a mistake. There hasn't, Thomas said. The will allocated a trust. For Daniel. For Noah. For housing stability. Education. Medical security. And a separate line item. A discretionary fund for acts of quiet assistance, to be distributed at the sole judgment of Daniel Harper. Daniel closed the folder. I didn't do anything, he said. Claire met his eyes. You did everything she asked of the world. Daniel didn't sleep that night. He sat at the kitchen table long after Noah went to bed, staring at the folded paper crane resting beside the folder. He thought of all the mornings he had nearly skipped the ritual. All the times he had wondered if it mattered. He felt overwhelmed, not by excitement but by a deep, aching responsibility. The changes came slowly. Daniel didn't quit his job right away. He didn't buy new clothes. He didn't tell anyone at first. He paid the rent ahead. Repaired the broken heater. Opened a college savings account for Noah. Then quietly he started doing more. A woman sleeping near the bus stop received a motel room. No paperwork, no lectures. A dishwasher at the cafe who had been missing shifts got grocery cards slipped into his locker. An elderly man who came in every afternoon just to sit was offered free soup, no questions asked. Daniel never explained. He never announced. He never put his name on anything. The fund moved quietly. Just like Eleanor had. One morning, Daniel arrived early again. He unlocked the cafe. Made coffee. Toasted bread. He set the cup down at the back table. Then he paused. He looked at the empty chair. Slowly, he picked up the coffee and toast and carried them to another table. One where a young woman sat alone, eyes tired, coat too thin. He placed the plate down. She looked up, startled. Daniel only nodded. She nodded back. Later that week, Daniel returned to the cafe after closing. He wiped the back table one last time. On the window ledge he placed the paper crane. Beside it, a small framed photo of Noah, smiling. No plaque. No explanation. Just a quiet marker. That night Noah asked, "Do you think she knows?" Daniel smiled softly. "I think she always did." Noah thought about that. Then he said, "I want to help people too." Daniel pulled him close. "You already do." Spring deepened. The cafe filled with light. The corner table remained open. And Daniel understood something he hadn't before. Kindness didn't disappear when unseen. It waited. D&D, *, if this story moved you, please subscribe, like, and share the channel. Quiet stories deserve a voice too. Your support helps more meaningful stories reach the people who need them. *.